Hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Tech with Alan Sparger. In this video, I'll walk you through how to set up a Laravel 11 application to authenticate users' phone number using Firebase authentication service. Like you can see on the screen, so I will show you how to set up the ReCAPTCHA, and then when you're done with the ReCAPTCHA, you could just click the boxes, verify, and then it says ReCAPTCHA successful. Please enter your phone number. And then you go ahead to type the phone number, and then you send the OTP. The OTP gets delivered, and then come back here. So I'm just going to show you the OTP. We have 1012237, and then you verify the OTP. So you can actually, so it says code verification successful. Awesome. So you can actually retry also. So this is what I'm going to show you in this tutorial, and I would recommend you stick along to the end so that you could actually be able to do this in your application. The advantages of authenticating users' phone number are much. It can serve as an additional layer of security for your application. You can use it to send to verify that the person who is entering the phone number in your application or whatever application it is using the right phone number, because sometimes people type number and then just between 5 or 6 or 7 they mix this number up and they are not sure, and they keep on waiting for a verification code to come through. And then sometimes there are people who just type random phone numbers on applications and then just to have access because they want to be authenticated. And then it can also serve as a way to log in users to an application. They can use their phone number to sign into an application that you built. So those are the advantages of using the Firebase phone authentication service. Head over to your browser, and on your browser you could just visit the link firebase.google.com, and then you could see just right at the top you could see go to console. So when you click go to console, on this console, you have access to create any project that you want to create. So if you are doing for email verification or whatever you want to do, you can create this. You can create a project. So everything you want to do on Firebase, you have to create a project. So I'll click add a project, and then I'll type in the name. So let me just say phone verification. Okay. So then I'll click continue. And then, so this is not a live project, but if you are dealing with a live project, you can actually enable Google Analytics for this project. So I'm just going to disable that and then go ahead to create the project. So there you go. So once it is done, it says your Firebase project is ready. Then I click continue, and then it takes me into the project I created. Now, after that, I will click. So this is a web. I'm integrating this project into a web. So I'll just click. So you see this icon I'm hovering over here that looks like a code icon and it's showing web. I'll click on that, and then I'll type. So just for a while, so I'll type the name of the project. I could just say phone auth and say Laravel phone auth. Then, so if you want to use, like I said, there are a couple of services that Firebase offer. You can also host your application on Firebase, but then I'm not hosting any application. I'll just leave that unchecked. Then I'll just register the app. So the next is, it's going to show you to add the Firebase SDK to your application. So you could see use npm or use a script tag. In the previous article I wrote when I first did this integration in Laravel 9, I had an article. I'm going to leave it in the description below, where I integrate this, where I did a similar setup like this, but I was using script tag. But in this video, I'm going to use npm package. So we're going to install the Firebase and the Firebase auth all together. So you can choose either the script or the use npm. So it's going to show you the credentials. You ensure to copy it, and then you continue to console. Next, you click on authentication. Now, those details that you copied, at any time you can also come back to the dashboard to have access to those documents, to those content. You can also change. If you don't want to use npm package, you want to use script tag, you can actually come back to this dashboard to make those changes. So if you come to this authentication, you click get started, and then it takes you in. So when you click get started, you see it's showing sign in method. So you'll see there are a couple of authentication services from Firebase. There is email, password. You can use Google, Facebook, play games, phone, and all of that. So I'm going to click phone, and then I would say enable. So when I enable it, so it means this project I created called phone verification, phone authentication is now enabled. So I don't want to add any testing numbers, so I just click save. So the project is created. So it says, don't to prevent abuse, new projects currently have a sent SMS daily quota of 10 per day. So, and then that's just what it is. If you want to change any settings, you can come to settings. You will always see other stuff about it. And then, so let's just get back to the application and then demo how to integrate what we've done so far. There are currently 2 versions that are recommended in the Firebase authentication documentation for authenticating users. So we have the Web Modular API and the Web Namespace API. But in this video, I'm going to be using the modular approach, and it's just pretty same, just a slight changes in the code. But I'm just going to stick to use the modular approach, the Web Modular API approach in this tutorial. You can actually also use the script tag, but then in the documentation, it says for production purposes, it is recommended to use npm package. On my code editor here, you could see there are 2 commands that I'll need to run to install Firebase and Firebase auth. I'm not going to do that now because I already have it installed, but you could just open the terminal of your code editor, and then you could run those installations so that you can have it installed in your application. The next is you have to create a file. I already have some of these things set up so that just to demonstrate it. In the resources folder in your Laravel application, you have to create a file called firebase.js. After using npm to add the Firebase package and the Firebase app package and the Firebase auth, you can import those SDK here. You could see this is for initializing the app, and then I can use the get auth, the ReCAPTCHA verifier, the sign in with phone number, and then the sign out. Now, before we proceed, for security purposes, while I was creating the project, you remember when I selected the choice of npm installation, there are configurations that were given, a Firebase object configuration, and all those keys are exposed. In recent Laravel developments, the VITs is now being used to manage asset bundling. So I can use VIT to access the environment variable here. So you can use import.meta.env to access environment variables, because it is not ideal to expose all those keys here. So this is just an additional knowledge here, because it's just pretty good to build applications that are secure. And so all these environment variables are defined in the environment file. So if you scroll over here, so you could see them here, and then so they are not exposed over here because this is a JavaScript file, and it's going to be exposed if you leave those credentials here. So you can use the import.meta.env in using VIT to access environment variables. So all you need to do is to append, if you see what I did, just to append VIT at the beginning of every of those environment variable keys you want to access in this Firebase.js file. After setting up the Firebase configuration to read the values of to read the credentials from the environment variable, the next is to initialize the app. So you could use const app initialize app, the function, and then you pass in the configuration. And then next you initialize the auth instance using the get auth. And then next you define the language that you want to use. Probably you want to use EN. Now, what is important is for VIT, there is the vitconfig.js file. And then so that Firebase.js file we created, we're going to add it there. So you could see in this code here, I added it in. So I'm going to use the VIT directive to add this Firebase to the welcome.blade.php file. So when you come to welcome, so this could be any file, maybe a register.blade.php file, or a form you designed to authenticate users' phone number. So head over to the bottom. I'm using jQuery, and you can see I used the VIT directive to add the Firebase.js file so that it can load, it can work with this page. Because all of the codes that are written here, I have their ID and classes in this welcome.blade.php file. So this could be any file for your own application. So just ensure you use the adds VIT directive to add the Firebase, the JavaScript file you are writing, whatever configuration you want to deal with. Now the next thing is to load the render function. So you could use window.onload and you load the render function. Now in this render function, you notice that there is a ReCAPTCHA container which is an ID of the place where you want to display the reCAPTCHA. So I'm just going to be showing this side by side. If you come to welcome.blade.php here, you will see what's the name now, reCAPTCHA container. So the place where you want the reCAPTCHA to show is where you would put this. So you could see the ID here. So in the form, this reCAPTCHA image is going to show here for the user to see. That is what this code is doing here. And then the size, if you want it to be a big size or whatever size. So I'm just going to leave it for normal. And then there is a callback. When you have a response, what do you want to do with the response? So I just want to allow the user to enter that number, and then I'll remove. So by default, I disable the send OTP. So this is the button. I disable it using, so there is an ID here. So this is on click. By default, it is disabled, and then this is the ID. So I would use, like I said before, I'm using jQuery. You can actually use JavaScript get elements. You can use JavaScript to access the DOM, maybe document.getElementID or getElement class name or something. While I'm using jQuery, so I can access get that button and then remove the disable button because it is successful. If it is not successful, I will say reCAPTCHA expired, please try again. Then I could now render the reCAPTCHA using the reCAPTCHA verifier.render. So initially, in the other article that I wrote in Laravel 9, this auth usually is at the bottom here. So immediately after this tag here, this is where it usually is. So it's not going to work. So that is why I changed that. So you could take note of that in case you are trying to use the article and it's not working. There is a difference between the code here and the one in the article. You know, there are bots that can be used to fill forms. So with this reCAPTCHA, it is just a security layer to ensure that it is a human being that is actually filling the form. When you do auth.language code and you choose French, the SMS that will be sent to the user's phone will be in French. When you choose auth.language code and you choose English, the SMS that will be sent will be English. So there are different forms of reCAPTCHA. The phone number verification has reCAPTCHA verification in various forms. You have invisible reCAPTCHA, you have reCAPTCHA widgets, you have optional specify reCAPTCHA parameters, you have pre-render the reCAPTCHA. But in this video, we'll be using reCAPTCHA widgets. Now, I've explained how that reCAPTCHA works, which is the one I'm using. I'm using the reCAPTCHA widgets for this tutorial. This is the whole code here. I'm just going to explain them and then we'll head back to try that. So this is the send OTP. So what this does is after the reCAPTCHA is successful, the disable button on the send OTP is removed, and then the user can enter their phone number. So when you get the user phone number, when the user clicks send OTP, it will get the user's phone number and then pick the reCAPTCHA to confirm it is done, and then create an instance again and then sign in with phone number. So this is one of the methods from Firebase package, authentication package, that can sign in a user using phone number. So you passing the app verifier, the instance of the reCAPTCHA that was successful, the phone number and the auth instance. Then if there is success, it says verification code sent successfully. So it stores the confirmation result. So you can use this payload to do anything. This confirmation result contains payload from the Firebase service, and then you can show the verification code input section and hide phone number section. So if you come to welcome.blade.php, for example, so this is the click to send OTP after the user has entered their phone number, and then this is verify OTP. So when they enter it, use this ID to pick the verification code, and then there is the option to retry. So when the user clicks verify OTP, it verifies it. You can click try again, it can retry the reCAPTCHA. So if there's an error, it throws the error message. If signing with phone number results in an error, reset the reCAPTCHA so the user can try again. And then so you can use window.reCAPTCHA verifier to re-render the verifier, the reCAPTCHA image, and then the user can go over it again. So when they enter the OTP they receive via SMS, so this is a function that handles that. So when the user type in the code they got from the SMS, then we can use the confirmation results to confirm the code that they sent. So this is a payload from Firebase service that we can use to confirm if the code the user enter is correct. If it is correct, we can get the user instance. Now this user instance you are seeing here contains a unique ID. That unique ID, you can use it to authenticate a user into your application. Now that you are sure that this user's phone number is accurate and the user who is entering the phone number is actually with the phone, so you can use this instance which returns the UID and other details, and then you could store it and maybe create maybe a cookies or a session to actually identify the user when they want to log in. And then so I had the verification input, and then I turned the verification code to be empty, and then the phone input will show again. You could do a couple of things here, and then if there is an error, I just alert the user with the error. So if you want to try again, for example, maybe the user was looking at something else and then the reCAPTCHA got timed out, you could try again, or probably you didn't get the OTP code, or you didn't get the verification code via SMS, you could try again. And then in a situation where you want to sign out this user, you can use the sign out and then to retrieve the auth instance, and then to sign the user out and then give you an alert that the user is signed out successfully. So this is what the Firebase.js file look like. With this whole approach, you can verify, you can send an OTP to the user to verify that their phone number is accurate, and then you can also log the user into your application. So this is what the welcome.page.php file looks like, and then you could actually use anything here. So I just did this scaffolding using Tailwindcss. You can use it could be your front end, could be anything, could be Bootstrap, it could be Material CSS, it could be HTML and CSS, whatever it is. Just ensure that you are able to use the vits directive to add the Firebase file, and then if you want to use plain JavaScript, you can go ahead, but I used jQuery in this video. So let's head back to the browser and do a demo of the integration of the implementation so far. Right, so when you head back to the browser, when you serve the application using PHP artisan serve, and then you do npm run dev, since you are using Vite, it's going to serve the application on a particular port. I will not go into those details now, but then this is a Laravel 11 application, as you can see on the screen, and then this is using PHP version 8.3. So I could just go ahead and say I'm not a robot, and then it says staircase. I just click stairs. This is the stair, this is the stair, and then verify. It says reCAPTCHA successful, please enter your phone number, and I say okay, and I type in the phone number and I say send OTP. So it sends the OTP, and it says verification code sent, please check your phone. So and then I check my phone, and then the code is 227560, and then I verify the OTP, and then it says code verification successful. Awesome. So at this point, you can give the user access to the code base. So you could see also that there was a retry in case in a situation where the code is not delivered to the user's phone number, you could actually retry. This is pretty what it looks like. There is an error you may likely get if you are not using this same address, localhost port 8000 that I'm using. You are going to get an error. So let me just show you. If you are accessing the application from this point 127.0.8, it's going to fail. So let me just go ahead and show you. So I say I'm not a robot, and then it says enter your phone number. I enter the phone number, then I say send OTP. So it says host name match not found. Now, if you get this error, what you could do is, I'm going to show you in a moment how to resolve this issue, is that you head over to the console. So when you head over to console, you go to phone verification that we just created. Then you go to authentication. Then you come to settings. So if you could see what we created just now, look at the user was signed in. You could see the date the user was signed in, and there is a unique UID for that user. So you can use this instance to, maybe you are using cookie or whatever session you are using for a particular user. And then here is the setting. So you head over to authorize domains, and then you can add a domain here. You can add a domain if you are using maybe whatever application, ecommerce.com, ecommerce.org for this application, the URL of your application. You can add the domain name and then to verify it, and then you can actually use it. But for this, I'm just using the localhost. That is why if I change this to localhost, for example, and then it gets to work for me. So that is why it can work. So for testing purposes, you can just register the localhost if you're having this issue. I already have the localhost. If you have an issue and maybe you have not hosted your application on any platform, you can do the localhost here and then register it. It's going to allow you, because it's been designed to recognize dev environment, and then you could actually test just like I've been doing. So next steps, after a user sign in for the first time, a new user account is created like I showed you just now. When you come to users, you see that it's created and it's linked. So the username and password and phone number and all of that, those informations are provided here. You can disable the account or delete it. And in your apps, the recommended way to know the auth status of your user is to set an observer on the auth object. Then you can actually get more information by when you get to this user, you can manage, you can disable or delete a particular account. And then you can, just like I showed you, when you've allowed the user in, there is the method you can use, the get instance, the auth instance method. The auth instance we created to log out the user by the sign in, by the sign out method I showed you earlier on. You can actually sign out the user. Just a simple way to say window.sign out. You see the function when I add. I'm going to leave the link to the project on my GitHub repository. If you notice in the console log here, it says CDN Tailwindcss.conf should not be used. Now, the reason why I just ignored this is because for some reasons, this is just for dev purposes. This could be, your project could be using Bootstrap or Tailwind CSS or whatever project. If you are using Tailwind CSS, you want to learn how to set it up properly. I have a video on my YouTube channel where I explained how to set up Tailwind CSS using Vite in a Laravel 11 application. So you can actually check that out. And I'm going to leave the link of all of these mentions I've done. I'm going to leave the link in the description below. So if you're new in Laravel or you're interested in learning Laravel, I would recommend you hit the subscribe button and then, just turn on the notification bell so that when I have videos uploaded, I'm going to be creating series on Laravel from beginner to mid-level to advanced level. I'm going to create content. I'm working on it right now. And then, so you don't want to miss out. You just ensure that you hit the subscribe button so that you stay updated. I have a couple of articles where I integrated certain packages in Laravel, where I did explain some stuff. I'm going to be bringing them up on my channel. That being said, I trust this video was very helpful for you. Let me know what you think about authentication of phone numbers in the comment section. Don't forget to like the video, click the subscribe button, and share this with a friend and share this with your cycle.